Holy crap, YouTube just took 5,000 years to get running that time. Sorry to interrupt you there, antics in the middle of trying to troubleshoot. I was like, what the hell is this thing not working? Trying to get things working. But anyway, we're gonna just listen to some kind of like background, get some Blade Runner vibes, rain, chill out, cyberpunk, ambient space music. So you're just gonna be listening to the sound of my voice with some, background space, sci-fi, whatever we want to call it, while we're working on things. And today we're gonna kind of deep dive into some of the animation layers. And man, I'd really like to find a better blend layer than the default idle, but I'm sorry. I mean, I can change it. We can change it to whatever we want. Or we can throw on the Spotify list and listen to what we were listening to before, but I don't know how YouTube friendly it is, but we're here to see the game being made, You're good, just jokes, no worries. So for anyone who wasn't here last stream, we actually got always so calm in here, exactly. Except for when things start breaking. Then it's calm, but we're like crying inside. Yeah, so I end up getting this organized a little bit better. So this is now fine and dandy. I'm really hoping, Fennec, to have space fishing in this thing soon. Because I think once I'm able to separate props and have the props work. Oh yeah, there's a thing where it like actually equips my item, which is absolutely terrible. And yeah, that's not good. So I've kind of broken the tractor beam in the process of everything that I was doing. Fishing, yeah, exactly. Fishing next patch confirmed. We do want to have some persistent. Where did my thing go? Coffee? Did our coffee cup escape? All right, so we have to keep kind of going with this because everything is going to be breaking. Random things equipping, things disappearing. Sig would say ship it. Exactly. No, we can't actually ship this Patreon build until the sprint is over. So that's not how it works around here. But I think we have accidentally dropped our equipable item. So the idea now, let me actually bring up that chat. Pop out chat. Put this over here. Make this tinier. Like this. Yeah. Okay. Twitter's good. All right. Cool. Yeah, because we're changing the way all of the equipment really works, and I'm kind of like getting it ready to be net coded, at least for the state, So if everyone has the same inventory, which they will, so we're just assuming, just for now that everyone has the same inventory. Hey, Deborah. Then we can serialize, which things are equipped within that inventory, because we assume that when a player joins, we all have the same inventory. For a lot of the persistent items, with the prop being the wild card, like whichever one is in the prop slot, you can only have one prop and one prop equipped, so that's kind of the rule right now. So, we assume that everything else is the same for every player right now, and then we'll make it easier for making it work in the net code. So it'll be a better, it'll be a kind of a cheaper solution. To getting the guns and stuff working in the multiplayer build. But I also would like to get props working as well. And the reason why props will end up working, the first props will work only because the props will have a network identity on them, and because Fishnet supports parenting, when I, the player, take this prop and move it into my own character, that movement, like, we're not syncing, like, it's still, like, the player's hand is still technically empty. This has moved into their own, location, and that process of it, moving into their, into that location is synced, will be synced to every other player anyway, because whoever interacts with this will gain authority, and this, its own transform information will sync across all the players anyway, because they are a world object. That the player will gain authority. The only thing I'll have to do is add an RPC that says, hey, I want authority over this network identity, this network object, and then equip it to the player. And really, the player is running around in the universe. The player is still its own object, its own network identity, and so is the thing. In future, that it won't be really that way. The player will have its own, like, serialized inventory, and depending on what values exist, it'll spawn its own. But we can, just because it's a feature of Fishnet, take a world object and move it to the player and have that whole behavior be synced, across the network. So from the social perspective, it makes these, it's kind of easy to just for now have the server spawn these things into the level, have a kind of a round robin authority system, and just technically have the authority parent the object, but don't, like, it's just its own network identity object, and it's still, kind of a world object, and it is still synced across to all the other clients because it was always a world object. We just have authority to move it, and it is it's going to reflect that as we grab the beer and move the beer around. But that's like that this beer bottle doesn't mean anything to another player. So ideally, the player would just be synced to other players, and within the player, there would be just an equipment, and depending on that equipment, the players would, kind of swap out their own items and whatever. But there would only ultimately just be players. But we still have to take these edge cases of when we do lay something down. Ultimately, we're still spawning a server object in the world, and we're still syncing it. So it's still, a lot of it is really same netcode, same methodologies of doing things, but just different, edge cases. Yeah. So for some reason, this ended up our gun ended up getting swapped out, and is now in our hand. Which shouldn't really have happened, but I feel that it happened because of the way the rig has a hand target. So I'm pretty sure in the coffee position. No, the gun is not in the coffee position. So the gun is still in the utility pivot, apparently. It is still here, which is the old IK system, the one that we're replacing and the one that we're going to replace over time. The only difference is this got moved. This got positioned. And, the thing that positions the multi-tool is actually, let me move this over, is our drop function. And I don't think our drops function is supposed to be ran on the utility guns. But because the utility gun, like, I think the multi-tool itself is inherited from an item. Or whatever we called it. Multi-tool, yeah, the multi-tool itself. I don't know why this prefab has so much. Right, so our multi-tool is a multi-tool, but our multi-tool, I'm pretty sure, inherits from an item, which is equipable. And because we have an on-equip happening with the props, we don't really have an on-equip behavior for the equipment. Because I'm kind of directly creating a custom thing, you know, the multi-tool has a whole different set of behavior. It is equipable and it is an item. I don't think it must by law implement a drop method, but its drop method doesn't do anything. And I think, you know, because the multi-tool is an item, I think it actually needs to be set as a multi-tool by default. So we can use the enumerator to kind of be like, okay, we don't actually drop the multi-tool right now. We don't actually want to drop anything that is a physicalized piece of equipment. Ultimately, we'll be able to drop everything and equip everything, and we'll have all those edge cases. But we don't want to break the game too bad right now because we're working on props. So we just want props to, you know, to kind of do their own thing here. So in the multi-tool of then it is a multi-tool. In the player, the multi-tool is a multi-tool. Okay, good. How's your stream going, Deborah? Are you still working on some Blender? What are you up to? I'm at a weird point now because I'm a little bit irritated with the code because it's like I'm seeing it. It's almost working. It's almost working in a base functionality. I want to get it done because I want to move on to like I have some really exciting things I want to do, but I can't push this, so that's annoying. And until I really this is not it won't accidentally do that. The bug was caused with me having an item in my equipment slot, which I have selected, which is number 1, and then selecting another item. And when I select another item, it's forcing the way the code works is if I have something in my hand and I need to pick it up. Remember, my game right now doesn't have an understanding of left hand versus right hand, or it doesn't have a differentiation between which rig can have an item, because ideally, like we're just in like weapon slot 1, you know, 2, 3 is going to be the prop, but in reality, you can have kind of like 2 hands with things, and they can kind of work, right? It's going to be kind of like separate, where you can kind of equip things kind of randomly. You know, you can double fist a beer if you want to. Just depending on what slot you have the item assigned to, becomes which one of those is the primary. So you can equip 2 things. If you had 2 beer in each hand, but one of those is kind of assigned to slot 1, like the left hand, and then 2 is kind of the right hand, and you can kind of go between them. Even though you're holding 2 beer, one will be kind of controlled by the slot, which will be eventually controlled by like the weapon wheel. So there might be like, you know, the ability to be kind of pressing a button and simultaneously either using 2 tractor beams or, you know, or having an item, you know, that you're holding in your left hand and still being able to fire. So if you were like, you were engaged in combat, you know, with one hand and you had like a med pin in the other, you could like hit the med pin, drop it, you know, still be kind of firing. But then if you go to like equip, you know, your kind of your 2-handed laser rifle, then you would unequip, you know, the multi-tool. Like you wouldn't drop it, depending on how I have the cycling behavior. If it's like a cycling behavior, and we switch to a 2-handed rifle, then it would unequip whatever you would have in your offhand. But if you were to grab something from the ground, so you're kind of like, oh shit, I need to grab this thing. The behavior would be to drop it physically, like kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go swap this out. So that's kind of like the I guess the implementation, the idea of the implementation. But now if I want to grab this in 1, it swaps the position, but it doesn't understand how it can swap the position because the multi-tool doesn't really have a situation that it can kind of deal with. But so it kind of ended up kind of breaking because we can't unequip it, but it's still right. So it swaps it out correctly, but it doesn't have a. We don't have an understanding. Like the multi tool is not an equipable. We can't. It doesn't have an outline. We don't know what to do with it. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those weird things where I needed to kind of make a call on that now. Do I go crazy with it and make it exist like we have with the because while this is primary, I'm kind of just adding shit to my hands, and it's kind of everything is breaking. Right, I can literally, we can have a beer, coffee, multi-tool laser weapon, and we can kind of keep equipment stuff, yeah. So anyway, that's problematic. So edge case for now is probably defining in the equipment system that if we have an item, drop it and unequip it. Well, maybe only if the item type is a prop. And I don't like that because it's kind of a kind of a hack. So we can say only dealing. I like escape casing, so we can say only deal with props for now. And what we can say is if item, pick the slot, item dot type is not a prop. So this would be our equipment top select, or our I equipable type. Yeah. What's our it's our item type. Okay, yeah. Item type prop. So if it's like if for some reason it's not a prop, we're just gonna return. So this is just like kind of an escape case, which is like fine. Like eventually I need to kind of know like to do this yeah. See this to do this could be bad. This is bad because we're just doing it on an item basis, and we don't have a lot of casing to determine like if a cargo box is an item, let's go and equip it. Let's fucking go. Yeah. So we're only if it's not a prop, don't worry. Don't drop it. Don't unequip it. Don't worry about it. We're not dealing with the. We're not unequipping or dropping anything that's not a prop, and that takes care of the issue. But ultimately we do need to set everything up accordingly. Because the idea of dropping your multi-tool or like throwing your multi-tool over to your friend, like I think about like what salvage will be like in the future when we have big like kind of salvage lasers, and the idea of like drifting something over to your buddy sounds it just seems like such a fucking cool idea, that I don't know, it just seems awesome. So I'm gonna go to my prop slot first, and now you still drop it and everything's fine. Equally I need to also make sure that we're not doing that for any but if I bring out my multi-tool, then we know this works. But what I don't want to have happen is we go over here while we're in our first weapon slot, and we go to interact, and we unequip. Now, I think we're still good. No, we're not. It's not necessarily as easy peasy as because really here we're actually, if it's an item, if an item exists, we're dropping it, but really it's obviously going to exist anyway, so we're really going to do all of this, not just if the item exists, but if the slot type is a prop, and then if the item is not null. Oh my god, I can't English. If there's an item and its type is not a prop, then return. So like we're just gonna do that regardless. Like we're just gonna go through the weapon slots, and we're ignoring anything that's happening. We're not selecting any prop. We're not doing anything unless there's a prop in the slot. So no prop in the slot. Right, so ignore the unequip action. Or the equip action, ignore, you know. So we're just right now we're ignoring an equip action. If we're not in a prop slot, this doesn't even make sense because why would the tops? This shouldn't even be happening. Yeah, because we're just saying if it's an unequipable and it's a multi-tool, we're actually just going ahead and doing the multi-tool here. I feel like this shouldn't even be happening. It shouldn't be unequipping the slot. But I get why it's happening because we're requesting it to move to a different inventory slot. Because we're technically, when we do equip something, it automatically goes to whatever slot based on the type. So, you know, even though we might be in slot 1 and we equip something, it picks it up and switches our weapon socket over to that. Because obviously if we're picking something up, we obviously want to use it. Right? Like it should be the main thing we're doing. Like pick up the coffee, we move to this, you know, but obviously the animation is not, it's not driving the rigs yet. It is physically changing the slots. And it's toggling the slots. It's not changing the rigs. So, and the other thing too is like I don't want to pick up a I don't want to pick up one if we're not in this. It's kind of weird, right? Because if I want to be able to tractor it, and if we're able to, like, I could tractor it if I move back, but if we're in interaction distance, then obviously then we can't, right? Because we're going to want to pick it up if we're close enough. But if we go back far enough, we can get the tractor behavior. So there's a few like stupid edge cases that I need to think about from a game design perspective, not necessarily from a technical perspective, of like what type of behavior do we actually like want to have happen. You know, like when we're picking up a bottle or putting it down or moving these props around and equipping them. And I feel like a part of me wants to just go ham and finish, like make the multi-tool be a correct, you know, equipable item. Give it its interaction script. Give it a rigid body because we're going to turn it off anyway once it's in our hand. And make it be act as if it should in its kind of final implementation. Same thing with the gun. It'll sure as hell make it easy to, you know, drop things, pick things up, swap out weapons, especially for weapon testing and stuff like that. But I'm not entirely like convinced that I want to break things because it's really an implementation time. I don't want to go like a week or two without a patch on Patreon. So it's like, you know, what can we do kind of for now that doesn't break things, isn't stressing the implementation, you know, still allows us to do things. But it's really like on the interact function. Maybe it's really just gatekeeping the interaction when we have something equipped, or when we're not in the we can't pick things up if we're obviously in gun mode. So that's really the correct way of dealing with it right now. It's like, you know what, we have a gun. If you have a tractor beam out, you can't pick it up. So don't bother with it. And then just checking it. So because that'll be a part of our interact or our main equip that we can kind of really do a check and kind of gatekeep the inventory slots to their type. So in the equip function, items null return if we're returning, if the type's a multi-tool. if the slot, right, for each weapon slot, if the weapon slot is, so this we want to not worry about, because what we're not doing in equip is we're not actually checking the slot selected at all. We're assuming, we're making an assumption here that we can equip anything no matter what slot we're in. But in reality, we kind of just want to gatekeep some of these selected slots. And once again, this is like, temporary bad code. Because we should never hard code anything. But all we're going to do for now is we know slot 1 and slot 2 is going to be they are the slots that are used for the tractor beam and the primary weapon. So if the slot selected is less than 1, because it should be 2. Yeah. So it's less than or equal to 2. So for any of those, then we're going to return, and we're just going to make a note in the code. We're just going to say temporarily disabling all slot 1 and 2 for the tractor beam and primary gun. To stop tool and gun from dequipping until they are fully implemented. So that also means, because of this little bit of code here, that we cannot pick anything up while we're in those slots as well. So no equip function will happen, even though we're checking to see if is it equipable and is it an item. It'll go through those passes, but you know what? We're just not doing anything here. And then what we can do actually right off the bat, we obviously we're trying to equip the item. That's what equipment does. Is we're just going to gatekeep that right from the beginning. And be like, you know what? If we're on the slot selected, then don't worry about it, and we'll deal with this later. And our unequip function is going to be very similar. We don't want to unequip anything if we're in those slots. So those slots become. Are we trying 319 later? I might. I still have the ships. I logged in earlier and immediately couldn't see anything that was in our ship, so that kind of sucked. Hell yeah. So we have like 1.5 million locked in. So now behaviorally, this is gonna look stupid, but we're on 1 now by default, and now we shouldn't be able to interact and pick these up. So what's happening is they're actually just disappearing. Because we're making an interaction action, but not setting the socket. So we're kind of gobbling them up. But if we're in prop land, then we can actually place them, pick them up, move the beer around, lay it down, use the tractor beam, use the gun, go back to the prop, grab our prop, put our prop back down. But the gatekeeping of socket 1 and socket 2 for the two weapons are probably still going to have to happen on the dequipped or on the interactor as well, which is annoying. Just so then I don't have to worry about the gun breaking itself. For the time being, we can just switch over to 3, grab our beer, bring it over. Place the beer wherever we want. Here we make a throne of beer. And, moving throne of beer with different mass. Yeah, because that'll just help me able to push these things live much sooner than I would like to, which is good. Because I want to finish the rest of the props, and more importantly, we want to finish the rigs today. So let's check that behavior, because I think by default, when we actually equip something, when we're able to, so here, this should not happen because we weren't in the slot for it. So really, technically, for now, on equipment, we're gonna actually by default default to the prop slot, and so we set up all of our slots, and just for now, are selected. It's gonna be 3. I know it's gonna be annoying, but lots of to-dos here. Because in the inspector, it'll be set to something totally random. So we're just going to do, when we start the game, we're in slot 3, because we know slot 3 is going to be our prop slot. So the player's, not going to start with the weapon in their hand anyway, or the multi-tool. They're not even going to know they can pull those out. So we can start immediately interacting with props. We can pull out the multi-tool, do whatever we got to do. Put it back away, finish, doing whatever we're doing with the props, and we still pull this out and come back, use our tractor beam on it, or come in, because ideally now, while this is selected, it shouldn't do that, so we still need to gatekeep the interactor. The interactor itself doesn't really have an understanding of what equipment slot we're in. I think I have a public method to get which slot from the selected slot index. So it's the same thing. I hate this, but I think our interactor. Yeah, so let's make sure there's a public. So the selected slot selected really should be private. Because it's being set with the slot function. And I'll make it specifically local. And then we'll make a public getter for that. Which will have just a getter of the slot selected. So then we have a public method to get our selected slot. But we're gonna have to change all these references. And I don't know why my VS Code is stupid, but and then we shouldn't ever have these. We don't need any of these thises if we're doing this right. Well, if we're gonna iterate through the actual slots themselves, never mind. Like this fire function should only be firing the thing in the slot that is actually selected. Right? If we don't have anything, we shouldn't really be iterating through the slots. You know, if we already know the index. Oh no, yeah, we still got to iterate through and match on index. I got you. You know, this is still right. We're still checking on the slot item and the slot. No, code is still clean. See, it hates me refactoring with F2. I don't know why. Probably because something already exists and it just doesn't know how to deal with it. So now it's just going to be a bum. Okay, so this is more like internal now. The selected item slot is now internal, and then the interactor will actually check and just do like if our equipment dot slot selected is less or equal to 2, then we're returning. So we're ignoring any world interaction if we're you know, once again, just temporary. Right, temporary slot lock for 1 and 2 until utilities weapons are implemented. So just a little bit of a hack. Like that, if we have a selected value, we're just replacing it. So that can just be a one-liner. If there's no prop, then we're just returning. And then we're just going everything. I do a lot of escape casing. You know, I don't know. So hopefully that'll kind of get us a little bit closer to just ignoring, you know, those first 2 weapon slots, and because I do want to be able to swap out. If we already have something equipped, we do grab something. I want to swap them. I think it's good behavior. Like, what do we do with the thing that we're holding? We're trying to interact with something. I think if it's you know, within reach, it would be a default behavior. So high. What is our weapon slot by default? Is it not 3? Maybe we're not 3 by default. Maybe we're still defaulting. Right? I want this to be the default behavior because I believe it is easier for the player from a usability standpoint. Right? Like, it's the same way that I don't allow height adjustment. Right? I think we can use the normal of the right cast, and that's good enough. Like, you know, sometimes I think You know, the best designs are very simple designs, and sometimes you don't want to give the player a ton of control, and you want to keep it simple. But you know, right? We're not moving, we're not doing anything crazy. Um, Everything is, you know, working as intended. And now, if we have a gun, the goal is that we're just tractoring it. We're not allowing you to pick it up anymore. There's no interactor because we're in this slot, and there's no interactor if we're firing the gun. I do want that to not be a case, but until, you know, from a gameplay perspective, there's a need of you know, because we can actually shoot these and have their physics, you know, and you know, and there might be an edge case where, hey, you know, this is a medical pen and I have a gun, so I'm in combat. And, oh shit, there's a med pen. I have to pick it up. Like, you don't want to have to go to, like, you know, like empty-handed to pick it up. I mean, you know, maybe that's like a valid state. You know, maybe, like, you know, maybe, oh, you should have put your gun away, pick up the med pen. I think that's stupid. So yeah, so this will hopefully make sure then that if I have something in my hand, then I switch to the gun. I'm in the gun mode, so I'm not able to drop. See? So I've locked the slot. So even though the prop's still there, the prop's still in the hand. They're two kind of physical things. Where we still have an indicator that shows where we would place the slot, but we're actually in the tractor beam mode. So we're holding our beer, which is super important. You know, we're using the tractor beam, and we're fine. And now we can go to the gun. And we can still use the gun, but we can go back to the prop slot and we can place the prop, and it doesn't mess up. Or we can be like, you know, in the middle of tractoring something. You know, we don't want to accidentally, you know, like, just because I'm tractoring a beer, I don't want to pick up the beer, but I might want to pick up the coffee and then tractor beam the beer. You know what I mean? So there's many, you know, now things are kind of starting to make sense, right? Easy peasy. But I don't like the code. I don't like the, you know, there's, we could do like a layer mask type thing, right? Because rules, like, I don't believe the rules should be defined in the logic. Like, there shouldn't be like, if, you know, this is these values, that should be something that can be changed. Anything hard coded is ultimately gonna create a problem. So I can rest assured in my code where I'm doing that little check, like, you know, for the layers being 1 and 2. Future Rav is going to eventually come back, you know, in like a month from now and be like, oh, for fuck's sakes, you know what I mean? Because I'm going to be like trying to like do something, and it's not going to work. I'm gonna be like, why? It's all coded to be dynamic. Everything is perfect, and it's not going to give us the behavior that we're going to want. But I think everything else is good. I went through and attempted to clean everything up and make sure we're only doing specific things in the right order, and we're writing the least amount of code possible. You know, I haven't created any tests or anything, but like in the interactor, we're only ever looking. So like, even a lot of this can be like kind of shortened, right? Because the look itself, you know, does the raycast. That's what its job is in this edge, you know, in this case. And there's probably some stuff here we can actually now turn off in the inspector that we don't really need to have, you know, like serialized. You know, like for debug purposes, I like to see which prop we're actually interacting with, and I'd like to know what the distance and stuff is. But and we do need to be able to define the layers. But like a lot of this now, like you know, can be hidden in the inspector if we want it to be. Because like a material reference, for example, like what you can actually do, like if you don't really want to have in the player So say in this version of the player, right, we have this interactor script. Wherever our interactor is. Oh yeah, this one probably doesn't have an interactor because we haven't finished it to put it on all the other players. So let's go into the female here, and we have our interactor. On that script itself, so here in the FPS interactor, we can actually define on the C# class what the material is. Because if this, like this, so this will be default to all references in edit mode, right? So in the script itself, we could be like, well, you know, the interactor is only it. Oh, hey, Green Monkey Studio. Right. So if we want to we're obscuring it in a certain way because we're like, wait, what's this reference? But we're also like kind of, you know, making it easy because really, this interactor is only ever going to use that weird material. You know, no matter where it should exist. So like on our female, we're making it be this virtual item material, which is our hologram shader. So if I copy that virtual item reference and we go into the C# script itself and we actually just change it here. Oh, for fuck's sakes, I can't, because it's in the scene. So here is our, you know, our virtual item material. So we've put it on the script layer in the import settings. So this will be applied to the metadata of the actual script itself, assuming we don't fuck that up, which should be added to version control. So obviously you can't reference transforms because, you know, how are you going to reference transforms? You're not, you don't have them defined. They're not in the scene. They're not in the prefab either. They're totally, you know, their own thing. But then what we can do then is we don't really have to, you know, have it, you know, it can still be serialized, but we can just have it hide in the inspector because we're not ever going to override it and we're not going to change it, so it's not really going to matter. And it doesn't necessarily, it still needs to be a serialized field, but now at least you know, we know it's always going to be a virtual item because we're setting it to be as a virtual item. And now when we kind of look at the interactor, there's less things that we're going to be able to fuck up. But if we're going through and we're like, wait a second, where was that? What was that material? We're like, oh, it was this. Oh, well, that should be serializable. Oh, it should be on the script then, because we're never going to want the player to change this one particularly for any particular prefab of that material. Right, because ideally you want to simplify these, and eventually I'll make some custom editors for a lot of the systems. So, but you know, ideally at the end of the day, we add a player script, and then it should start populating everything by its requirements, and you know, makes it super easy to. How's your day going, Green Monkey Studio? And it's just like, that's just kind of gatekeeping things, so the designers, you know, don't change shit. Right, and we see, like, obviously we still have a oh what, which oh yeah, we still got that bug. We are not, okay, let's hit play, and we need to see why on our equipment we're not in the fourth slot, right, which is our prop slot. And that's the other reason why I don't like this code as well when it comes to these indexes, is because, like, you know, the idea is that we can create any slots we want, right? They're really just bound to their enumerator, right? We can create dynamic slots, like you create a slot that's like an earring in the future, you know what I mean? And define an item type that happens to be an equipable, you know, earring, and, you know, it could all ultimately work. And have a, you know, a state of sorts. Yeah, so we're not really, yeah, so I do, yeah, so in the equipment, yeah, I do want to temporarily set this as a serialized field, because we do want to we do need to see. It's probably going to get deleted afterwards, but I want to see what our actual default is because we defaulted it in the script, but the inspector could have it set. The prefab itself could have it totally, backwards. But when we're awaking and we're setting our default slot, it's really weird because it should be 3 slot selected by default, unless something is defaulting it somewhere else that bad code. The interactor itself. So in the equipment, our slot selected is set to 3. So we should be able to grab this, and a prop is being set because we are in 3, but for some reason it is unselecting our rig. Probably because we're not equipped by default. Yeah, because the equipped. Yeah, this equipped state should be moved over to the responsibility of the actual slot itself. Because by unequipping, we're pretty much saying we're putting our hands away, and that's not really what we want to do. So the equipped is some old implementation that's going to come back and just not do us good. Right? All right, good. Got our beer bottle. Got our coffee. Gotta put this coffee in 0G. Okay, this is it's getting clean. It's getting clean, chat. Clean code. It's good code. Feeling good. It's not having a smell to it anymore. Yeah, so that should be because we're going to our hands by default, and our prop slot is technically an open. Our hands are out. We're actually doing something. We're not turning it off. We're not. There is no real turning it off when we're kind of unarmed in that regard. Yeah, so I really need to actually just set that as a default property. So we're just gonna leave equipment on, and I know in future Rav is gonna be like, why are we equipped by default? But it will hi. Yeah, so we're gonna apply this to the female rig. The male and female both are gonna need to be changed to support this, but let's put this one on lo-fi game beats. I'll just put that one back on again. That was nice. Okay, so this is good. So what do we have to do next? I really just wanted to get that working. And then we can start making, I want to start converting over items to props. I'm still not 100% sure if I want it to be an equipable type, like if it should be an equipable prop, which is a prop, which is an item, which is, I don't know, there's kind of a level of inherency. That's a bit ridiculous. But I mean, it might, I mean, that might be the only way of really having like the stacked interfaces done in a way that is clean. Let me make sure the drop function works, actually, because I'm still placing them when I let them go, but I need we need to actually drop them. So it works. It's good. Hey, Judson. Okay, so I think I've covered every edge case that we need for the. Oh, we did the other one. Did I lose a beer? Did I lose a beer? Apparently I did. Or did I 0G that beer? Hang on. But I left it on the floor. I wonder if it, yeah, what happened when we lost the beer. No, and a coffee cup, apparently. Alright, so we are in 3. So the swap works. We can place things, we can swap things, we can drop things, we can pick them up, place them. Oh, I bet you when I threw the coffee cup, it actually went out into the 0G. I remember I kind of yeeted it when I last time. We boop. Off to Mars you go. God, I can't wait to add emotes and stuff. Can't wait for things to get more challenging. And alright, so tractor beam. Let's Oh, actually, I just discovered a tractor beam bug. That's why it's not setting the kinematic correctly. It's like tractor beaming itself. Well, it's already tractor beaming. Oh, so that was the bug with some of the components when we had something selected and we were trying to move it onto another item port. It was locking up. Interesting. Cool. Man, wait a second. Oh, it's a good thing I have actual types on, because it'd be so funny if I could equip a, because technically components are also eye-equipable, so they inherit from the eye-equipable interface, but because we're actually checking for a ship component, and that obviously an interactable prop, it's not going to work, but it'd be so funny if we could just like snap a beer bottle to the item port. Thankfully I'm not that bad at code. The only other thing too is when we switch, if we equip something and we go out of it and we come back, the interactor, which is responsible for cloning the item, doesn't know to clone it when we kind of already have something equipped and we've already switched slots, so it has to kind of you have to kind of like switch the slot to get the equipment indication to come back again. But that's minor. Okay. So I think we're good to continue doing what we were going to do, because this shouldn't actually break now. Hopefully, wink, wink. Even if I load up another character that doesn't have an interactor at all, at least the old equipment system will still be fine. Because I don't think I have a dependency of the equipment system to have an interactor, but the interactor has a dependency of the equipment system. No, it does actually for these references. For what? What does it need it for? Oh, to clear the clone. Right, because the equipment itself does need to clear the clone into interactor. Right. Let's open up the female and the male. Let's just do a little tiny bit of cleanup. So the player female regular one now has a rig controller, so they're gonna need an FPS interactor added. And we're just gonna say that anything can be interacted with right now. So everything is fine. And it shouldn't need anything else. Because it should reference its own inventory and its own rig controller. The only thing is, like, this is where, like, because there's a transform reference, but it doesn't technically need to be serialized. The prop targets themselves could be a scriptable object, and I think what I might do is have the rig controller default to a scriptable object reference for the prop targets, and then in the prop target scriptable object we can define them all, and then we don't need to worry about them. They'll all be universal. The only issue is that eventually the prop targets will be a little bit different from the male and female, because there could be some differences in offsets. So right, so in the rig controller, you know, because there's so many different variations of the male and female now, this prop targets array should really be, you know, we will still have a prop rig target or a list or array of these, but these will exist within a scriptable object definition, and then we just reference that, and it'll be serializable, and then we can edit them. Like, each player prefab would still have to define which transform is being used. So, you know, we still got to do that regardless, but at least we can kind of add the template and the weights. So we don't need to go into each one and kind of redefine it on the prefab itself. But I mean, we might have to, depending on how it's implemented. Ideally, what I think would be really nice is the build an editor tool that gives us a gizmo, and we can move a transform. We can kind of like run the player in play mode, right? Drag an IK target and move it around, and then what this will have instead of a transform is just a vector 3, which will be the position. And remember, it's a position always relative to the player. So really, you know, we would just have a quaternion and a vector 3, which is defined for where, you know, we're actually moving and rotating this thing, and that will be the, you know, the in-game point at which the IK target's going to move the prop, or, you know, like adjust the prop, and then it can truly be serialized outside of the prefab, because, you know, it's just a vector, it's just a rotation. I don't need to particularly define like a bunch of these empties, you know, that we're just using for that purpose. We just have these rigs we're just saying like, here's the coffee mug, here's this, here's that, and they'll all be then completely just data, which they should be anyway. They should all just be data. And later on in the future, then if I move into dots, and I'm working with some third-party animator, and we need to find these random positions to adjust whatever in the world Unity ends up creating, then they're not game object references, they're just positional references, and it'd be a lot easier. But I still need an editor tool that can kind of treat those as if they are transforms within the scene or within the prefab that's being used to, to kind of like do it. So, while we're moving it around, there'll just be like a local position thing. And I think that'd be the smart way of doing it, right? Because we're trying to make decouple the players themselves as much as possible from the environment, so that it's easier to kind of take these points and save them out to something and bring them in and not have to reapply them to multiple variations of things. Right, so here on this rig, yeah, because I don't have all the, and alternatively, I could take the rigs and just do female rig, male rig, take the whole rig itself, set it as a prefab, bring the rig in to the, like to the object, and then that would also work as well, and that might be the temporary solution that I do for the time being. For the prop targets. I don't know if yeah, that might be the better way of temporarily doing it. The only issue is that yeah, I think they're still a little bit different. Yeah, so I might actually rename because it's going to try to find. Actually, yeah, no, there's no dependencies there at all, I don't think. No, it won't work. The issue is if I try turning this into a sub prefab, there's no way the IK can reference the armature points in the root. They kind of have to stay. They're kind of tied to each other. So for now, at least. You guys are quiet. How are you guys all doing anyway? What are you guys up to? What are you guys working on? Because I would like to get a lot of this now working again. So we kind of, right now, we're just going to go through and kind of make sure that we didn't fuck everything up completely with a male and female. And let's do the ship, because I think the ship systems one is of the male player. And I want to see how bad it's going to break. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't get a console error. But we also don't have a prop in here. Let me, I'm going to add a prop to this scene just to break things, mix things up a little bit. Let's add a beer prop right here. Looking at ships with the wife. Ships with the wife. Oh, for Invictus Week? Man, the new Snuff Fighter is selling like hotcakes. The new LTI token. Yeah, so we're just gonna put this interactable beer bottle there. And we're gonna see how bad we totally destroyed this thing with the new interaction system. But I think I think the male rig is good. Well, might help to just add a little mesh collider to that. So let's see if we get an error in the hands free. So this should be totally ignored in this version, even though there is an interactor, because nothing is set up for this player. So I'm hoping the default behavior is it's still a prop, so it's fine. And so it can be moved with the tractor beam, and we can still shoot. But it doesn't know, it doesn't error out. So if the player doesn't have an interactor, it's not a big deal. But we do want to get them actually working. So at least I know I can push a build live and everything will still kind of work. Let me actually check the net system. And I'll make sure that the multiplayer aspect is all working fine. All right, so we're in. Same thing. Like I'm actually gonna put let's put an interactable prop right here. Like I do have some random crap here, but I do want to actually like pool balls, like maybe making the cue ball be interactable would be kind of nice as well. Just as a test environment, you know, players can go grab some of the, you know, kind of the random things that are happening. So this all seems fine. The multiplayer, oh right, they don't have authority, right? So you can only move in multiplayer. I think you can tractor your own cargo. No. Hey, 51 Raiders from the Danger. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. We're doing interactables today. See, now I'm worried that the array cast in multiplayer for the cargo is now being ignored. But we'll deal with this shortly. Welcome to the stream, guys. Thanks for the follow. Elliptical curves. This is what we're working on today. I'm doing code cleanup for my interaction system. So let me just go to the FPS map. So we have a bunch of states that we need to kind of manage here. So the idea is we have a default rig that's going to be used for props. Sold to dev, right? So that way, you know, we can go up to any prop and it is interactable. If it is interactable, we can go ahead and, you know, go to our little, you know, first person mode. The rig targets aren't dynamically, you know, moving to the props correctly. They're kind of stuck in one state right now. We're going to fix that later on today. But the idea is that I can grab the coffee mug and it becomes a placer, and we can place it anywhere, you know, on the normal. So if we come over here, we can, you know, place it down there, you know, any normal intersection point of our raycast is, you know, and then we can kind of grab a beer, you know, place our beer over here, and we can also swap out items. So if we have an interactor, you know, if we detect another item, we just do a swaparoo, right? So that works. But if we have our tractor beam out, so we're on a different item slot, now we're not going to interact with it, we're going to use the tractor beam. But the idea is we lock the interaction to the prop, aka like, you know, the unhanded slot. So now we can still kind of do things, but we can still then, you know, tractor things around, move around, you know. I can go back to our beer, we can go into the zero gravity, you know, and ooh, 0G beer. And let me just give this a push. And oh, there it goes into the gravity volume. And you know, everything is you know, gravy. Where's the other beer? Oh, over here. So I need to get all the edge cases to make sure that, you know, things are going to be, you know, nice and fine for the players, and that these props, you know, are gonna work. So I had to kind of gatekeep. I was like swapping out my own gun with the props and everything, so I had to kind of gatekeep the two slots, because I was like, the weapons right now don't really have a lot of these implementations of drop and equip, and they're kind of hard coded, you know, to a certain degree right now. for simplicity's sake. So we need it to take that into effect. Now I'm kind of going through the other scenes, and then making sure that if for some reason we have a player that doesn't have an FPS interactor, it doesn't break the equipment system. So for some reason I have an old prefab for a scene, or the multiplayer, for example. We don't want to add this to multiplayer yet, so we want if there's no FPS interactor, there's no link between the equipment system and the interaction system, and in their case, they can still like tractor beam stuff around because that was the original behavior, but they can't do this. They can't go and grab an item, place an item, swap out an item. Right. So yeah. How was your stream? What were you doing? How was everyone? If you guys have any questions of what we're doing, like, my name is Revere, and I'm working on a space trucking game called Unforgiven Space, where you have all actual equipable items, fully simulated ships. Your job is moving cargo from point A to point B in a very like Firefly kind of Cowboy Bebop type world. Oh yeah, and we can make the beer bottle interactable now, which is great. I'm also a Blender artist, and we just switched to this external camera. Stream was good. Was texturing my mermaid. Hell yeah! Right, so we boot the ship up here. I'm just gonna kind of show you guys the flight model. Just gotta kind of wiggle it because it kind of gets stuck on the gravity for some reason. What is it stuck on? No, I didn't make my character models. They're commissioned by an artist named Quayne from South Korea. And, I have them all imported into Blender. I switched them over. They were originally in Maya, so I can make changes to them. What are we actually stuck on? We're actually stuck on something. Like, our ship is, like, legitimately actually stuck on something. There we go. Or something made us heavy. Right, and the whole simulation is like real thrusters. Cowboy Bebop, hey, yeah, exactly. I think Cowboy Bebop's awesome. Alright, so we have like dynamic nested gravity volumes. I wonder why the when we get into the seat, the tractor, the door, the rear ramp is actually supposed to close as a default behavior, and there's no beef in my bell peppers and beef. Oh, that sucks. Thump 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 thump. But the character models support all of the blend shapes you'd want for voice animation. So they, like I'll kind of just, let's kind of zoom in here while we're in play mode. Let me turn off the, so let's take the female as an example. And, where is she? So if I just select her blend shapes here, all the Phoenix are done. So everything, we could do everything from like, all of the character animations for driving the face rig are fully set up. So ideally when we start recording like a lot of the NPC dialogues and player dialogues and stuff, a lot of that can be actually driven into the face rig, and we can actually like, feed in all the animation data for like, having our bartender be like, hey, how's it going? And, kind of, fleshing it out a lot more, Don't want to add like full voice acting or anything like that, but just like, the welcomes, right? The greetings, your basic reputation system driven events, like, police, like, hey, what are you doing? Right? Like just little things like that. Pirates are attacking a station, like, oh no, just like a couple hundred little voice, dialogues. But ideally, you would interact with the NPCs. You get it would pop up on your terminal. accept the quest, and then you go ahead and do the quest, and then ta-da, we're done. But I do want to voice act a lot of the primary missions that are kind of done for like salvage, mining, like in Star Citizen when you kind of max out your reputation and you move to the next level. I believe going up between the reputation state, there should be a random NPC that's going to kind of give you that kind of mission, and it should be, because it's an advancement of the player itself, that it should be something a little bit more personal, and not just a screen, like, that's an opinion. But yeah, so we just have some. I bought what's it called? I do have a text, a speech to rig system that I purchased, where I could feed in just audio files and it will do it. Like, but it's not as expressive. It doesn't. It's not the same as just recording your own face. You know what I mean? And trying to capture the expression. It's okay. Like, it would probably pass the first game seal of approval, right? But it could be better, like, but I don't know, man. AI is getting crazy, right? So it's kind of great that we can, I can write a script, feed it all in the AI, take the voice from AI, feed that into a rig, and there you go. Like it is kind of nuts, and it definitely it's an enabler, but there's something to be said about an organic, expression by an NPC, or a certain benefit to it, just kind of, especially in a world where everyone will start using AI to do things. Organic things are going to feel a lot more human. As AI becomes more commonplace, even though they will require more work, Okay, so let's do some. I always wonder about accessibility crowd. Do they care about quality? If they're in the accessibility crowd, I don't think so. For accessibility purposes only, I think anything is better than nothing. Like, for example, like, I don't know, because if you can't really see that well, it's kind of hard to play an MMO. But if you have limited, visibility, then having the quests read to you, or you're dyslexic, like, and you just can't read quests, being able to feed like I saw an add-on that just feeds World of Warcraft quests in the chat into a voice AI, and just plays it back to you. So every single NPC is actually like talking with a random voice, with a random modification to it. It's such a cool add-on, but I don't know how much it would be to pay for that API service that's running under the hood. But it's definitely neat, and it's definitely something done with Spaceborne as well. Like, Spaceborne has a lot of canned voice dialogue that are just kind of like text to speech, a little bit more advanced. I don't know what service they use. And for a lot of players, it's kind of like a good enough option. I don't know, like it'll be something I'll explore next year. You know what I mean? When mechanically the game is kind of done, and we're just thinking about a story and missions, and like how improved is a mission, with custom dialogue, versus just the gameplay that the mission presents you. Like, how impactful is it, on the players, like, on the players, like, psyche, that are able to do something. Because, like, if you have a mission, rescue destroyed ship, right? And you go there, and it's like a destroyed ship, and pirates, or disabled ship, and pirates attack, and you defeat those pirates, and then you escort the NPC back to station. Mechanically, I mean, all there is you arrive at a point, there are aggressors, you kill the aggressors, and you escort NPC to the station. fundamentally, it's not necessarily crazy. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. But if you arrive at that place and you get a full audio, help, we're under attack. Like, maybe it's a female character, maybe it's a male character, it doesn't matter. But if you get a radio comm that's like, help, our systems are disabled. There's pirates on, on the horizon, or there's pirates on our sensors. We don't know what to do. Please help us. And they're like breathing heavy. You know what I mean? You can hear static on the comms. You're like, whoa, what's, you know what I mean? Like, whoa. And then suddenly, like, there's an inflection of that NPC on the player, and even though, like, there could be realistically only 20 different recorded dialogues of that distress call, like just enough variations that if you hear it again, eventually, if you hear that in other missions, the game's slowly going to, kind of, wear off on you, and they will ultimately become a standard mission type, right? But for a while, right, the player, will be a little bit more influenced by it, right? Especially like for the first time, or the first time they do that type of mission. And then when a pirate pops in, just having that little bit of audio dialogue of like, drop all your cargo or whatever, or whatever that is, it creates like an immediate, like, this is this is the person we're saving, the heroine or whatever, and these are the aggressors, these are the enemies. It's immediately like aligning you as a player to a role, a position, and then when you're blowing them up, it just feels cooler because you're doing it for this other player, and you've already created in your mind, some version of them, whether it's, which is, like reading a book, right? And then the mission becomes a bit more fun. Like when they finally make it to port, you just have a little small audio cue. Oh, thanks a lot. That means a lot to us. Like little tiny thing that the NPC says over the radio when the mission is complete. It just gives that player that little tiny bit, a little bit more gratification than just like the 20,000 credits that they've received. So it's not a lot. Like it's maybe 3.5 minutes of recorded audio, split up into the different, like, they're almost about to get blown up, or when the ship blows up, having that voice actor have the, like, like a final scream or something mild, right? And it's just those little things that just create a better sense of atmosphere or a sense of place. But like not having it, like it's one of those things where it ties into immersion and like the story itself, or the lore itself, in a sense. Like ultimately, that's all you actually are doing. Like, what I mean, you're just going and killing some pirates, and you know what I mean. Like even in a space trading game, all you're doing is buying cargo and selling cargo. But what are you actually buying? Like if you're moving weapons, like do you feel like those weapons that you're moving are actually creating a conflict, or they're satisfying a conflict? Are you arming some milita, or militia by doing it? Like what are you doing in the game, or what are we telling the player that they're doing? Like how does this action affect the player, right? Like in the universe, even though like the player, like the idea of the game is for the player to have such a small influence, that they're kind of a nobody, right? Like they're a little bit of a lone wolf. It's really important that the things that you're doing in the game have a lot of duality to it. So I love the idea of like you're doing the smuggling mission, but you don't realize it's a smuggling mission until you get caught, and then you realize, oh shit, this is illegal. But the game didn't tell that to you. You know what I mean? Like you kind of fucked yourself over on it. But like the game should just have clever ways of telling the player, hey, there's a thing you can do. It's probably sketchy. Maybe it's the fact the NPC is in the corner of a bar somewhere. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the atmosphere or the environment the NPC is in. Or maybe it's background lore about that NPC that's been expressed through the player. So whether it's like level design, character development, world development, there's ways of kind of being like, this is a sketchy thing for you to do, but you go and do it anyway. You just think you're doing a random cargo job. You load up the cargo, you move it. Now you've been scanned, now you've been caught. I mean, now you're a criminal. The game made every action subtly. Without telling you directly, the game has told you in some way, hints that what you're doing was wrong, because that should be like good game design. And then ultimately, you still did it, and now you're going to suffer the consequences, right? So the game should always, like, I don't know, have visual ways of bringing the player on a roller coaster. It's either a mental one or a or a progressive one, and and to just create content, because at the end of the day, a programmer, me revere only the programmer. All I care about as a programmer is like, well, how do I make the mission work? Okay, I go to a place, an NPC spawns, that needs help, and then two pirates spawn, and there's health, and they get destroyed, and then they just need to get back to the station. Programmatically, that's such an easy it's an easy thing to implement. But systemically, as a collective, you know what I mean, like game, from the game's own game mechanic perspective, it's not that easy, right? Because there's a lot more to it than just like the code that goes into the game to be like, go here, do this thing, go back. Right? There needs to be the whole like spectrum of like of the environment and the reason why they're doing it. Are they doing it for good, for evil, right? And I think, and I don't, I could be wrong, right? Because I'm only new to game dev, but I think there's like a missing cohesion or a missing synergy between like the many different disciplines of like game development, and where like the scope or the purpose or the intention of the product or something like that is totally lost, and it's either like completely like market driven analytics and like that just drive like the creation of mechanics, and then hey codex, and then like things are created around that, and I just like feel that that I don't know, that companies are starting to do things wrong, and I don't know the solution to fixing it. You know what I mean? The only thing I know how to do is just make my own game, and and try to bring back in my own game, better level design. I don't even know how I'm going to do that. I'm not even a great artist. I'm not a perfect artist, but I just know I have this intuition, I guess, that of certain things that should exist. And how I make them exist, I have no idea. But I know that if they can exist and I can create them, then I will have an experience that I at least like, that I want to see in a game. That I, like anyway, I don't know. We're just rambling and not coding. So we're having a typical Rav stream where nothing. I need to get back into the Zen again, because I really love talking about game design in general, even though I have no experience with it. Or I guess talking about, I don't know, things that we could do differently as a theory. I guess it's all a game theory, and see if some of these things, if implemented, could actually work. You know what I mean? Like could I don't know. The danger, the dangers. Oh, but let me give you a shout out. I'm so bad on shout outs. I'm so sorry, guys. But let's give the danger and his wonderful audience shout out. Oh my god, why does Chatterino suck so much when it comes to slash commands? And yeah, there's so many. I think there's an equation, there's a balance, and of specific things that if equal equals the right thing. Like I'm still not even certain as to why I need a fully interactive prop system. I'm kind of really leaning into the fact that I'm making it because kind of Star Citizen has one. But when I am playing Star Citizen, I love props. I love the roleplay aspect of just being able to grab a coffee, place a coffee down. You gain nothing from it. It is literally like you gain nothing systemically from being able to move furniture around your hab and decorate it. You gain nothing by being able to go and grab a drink. You gain nothing you're just interacting with things. You're playing with Legos, at that point. But I still think it feels cool. You know what I mean? I still think there's a certain like immersion to it. Of just grabbing a coffee and walking around with it. And just kind of seeing other people, just being able to kind of interact with these things. They could be a total waste of time. No idea until players. But the great thing about game development is we can just give it to players and be like, "Do you like doing this thing?" The players be like, "Oh, cool," or they'll be like, "No, this is boring." So whether something works or not is only like an hour of testing away, if you're willing to, push it. So yeah, let's either want to finish. Yeah, we happy Friday. We made it. How's it going, Captain Coder? I spent some time cleaning up code. I don't know if you were just here a second ago where I rambled on about game design for a while, but anyway, in this new system, the interaction system is much better. So check this out. So I can now go up to any interactable. I can go ahead and grab it. When I have it, I can place it. It places itself on the surface normal, so we can just come over here, put it here, put it here. If we select another thing, it'll do a swap. Right, so we can grab our coffee, we can drop our coffee. Right, we can throw our coffee. We can put our coffee in 0G and have 0G coffee. And then we can boop it into the boop. So some fancy coffee. I need one of those no spill cups. How do I get one? Well, we don't really have a no skill cup. We kind of just have it's some space cohesion. I think that requires gravity. Yeah, yeah. There's a like a field generator in the bottom of the cup. That kind of pulls the liquid always in space. I don't I don't know. But yeah, so this is the prop system. I just had to adapt it because it was being bad. But yeah, and we should have another one over here in the scene in the middle that we're using. So we're one step closer to having this rig system be fully working, so we can, have other things influence the players' rigs. That's the goal. I've only just kind of done props right now, but the goal is to be able to use this rig system so that when we're in the ship, we automatically grab the hands and we can fly the ship around, and it looks super cool. I have a mail. So here in ship systems, just to kind of showcase the goal. So the IK of the male character here, I'll just hit play and we'll just run over. But yeah, I'm glad it's Friday, man. I had a good stream last night. I streamed some Star Citizen for a bit, and we migrated to game dev. So I'm hoping to slowly bring more Star Citizen fans over to the project, because they are in some ways a little bit of the demographic. And I want direct feedback to have a truly open development model, where we're literally developing it here live. So you can't be like, oh, well, what's taking the project so long? I'm like, this is what we're doing right now. See, this is the thing keeping the project so long. Like you can see, we're having trouble with the netcode right here. Do you want to help? You know what I mean? So this character's rig here is fully dynamic, right? So we have these hold positions. And these positions, these targets, which are driven by the ship, move, right? So we don't actually like once the player is hitting those transforms, and the ship itself is moving those transforms based on its own input. Then all we have to do is set the references, and then blend in the weights, because by default the player. Right. So if I just stop the project here. Right, by default, he's just idle. Right, but his idle animation, right, and he's just positioned in the chair, by his hip. So it's really, all I have to do when we go to get in the seat is move the player to his own seat position, like parent him to the through the seat, and then set his IK targets, set the weights of those IK targets, and we're good. But we're not good because I'm engineering it in a way that, the same rig targets and the same weights of the hands are going to be used for the prop system. So in other words, there's only one rig system, and there's only a hand target for left, a hand target for right, a foot target for left and right. And then when we get into doing stuff like bar stools, where the player can sit on the bar stool, but they can have their feet up on the rim, right? Wherever there's a prop, the idea is to create like an eye rig controllable, or an eye rig target. I don't like calling rig, like interfaces without a bowl, but I mean technically it is an eye rig target. But I would have an eye rig target, which would be an interface for the prop, and which would require there to be 4 transforms. They could be they could be like empty references, which could return null. But either way, there would be a get target with an enumerator value of like whatever the rig would be, which must return null or some transform. And the idea then is when we're interacting with a prop of any sorts, any eye interactable that exists in the level, if while we're interacting with it there is an iRig target, then we know when we do that parenting, when we either equip it. So say we're equipping the gun, cool. There's an iRig targetable, excellent, cool. We're gonna parent the gun to wherever the gun needs to be parented to. We're going to set those rig targets for the left and right, and we're going to set the weights. And the weights themselves can be on the iRig target. So the iRig target can have like a list of, iRig targetables, if it needs to have that, which will define a location, a weight, and vice versa. And then we would assign it. And then, in the case of a cockpit seat, we go up to the cockpit seat, we interact with it. It parents the player this time instead of parenting an object to us, and it sets those rig targets. And then once those rig targets are defined, we leave it to the ship to drive the seat, right, to drive those control surfaces. That way when we leave the seat, when we exit the seat, we're clearing those out. And then the idea then is all the wonderful complexities of where, say we have a gun, and in the gun itself we can add the transforms that reference where the target's going to be, and we can run in play mode and adjust those on the animation rigging package, and we can copy those back into the player, into the item. Then the item itself has all of the targets that it needs, right? The player doesn't need to know anything about it. The player just knows that this is an eye interactable thing. And it kind of goes from there once it makes that interaction. And then what's great about that is props can be done independently, right? A designer can go make a bar stool and be like, this is the position that a player will need to be in, create a bunch of empties, move things around, and then when the player interacts with that empty, wonderfully complex, great, I love it. It's over-engineered, but it needs to be to a certain degree. I wouldn't call it over-engineered. It takes care of all of the edge cases of the types of interactions, and the types of animations that need to occur in the scope of the game. Otherwise, because one of the issues that I see with a lot of Unity devs, because I spend all of my free time, if I actually have free time, I'm watching you, learning from you, watching John, learning from John, watching Jonas. I mean, I'm watching everyone. I literally am like, like space X of watching other streamers, because it's about learning, right? And when I'm watching all the tutorials, or like I'm observing tutorial hell, a lot of times when I see the animation side of things, there's so many animation in the animator that it becomes crazy, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's not happening. So I'd rather rely on IK and instead build work on extending like the rig system, and just have all these different rigs, and or targets for a unified rig, and then not worry about it. Like, who cares about the extra CPU cycles if it's going to be burst compiled anyway? And and then I just need to worry about holding on to a tray, right? NPCs go grab a tray, they move the tray around, all the food is on the tray. We don't have to worry about holding food, right? NPCs just got to get a tray and go to a table. That's it. You know, they grab it, appearance, nav mission navigation, they sit down, okay, we're good. Tutorials are rough, man. Yeah, because the tutorials are like snapshots in time when things were sometimes done differently, and and it's really really interesting. You know that like the different ways of doing things quickly become like not necessarily the correct way, and there's never really a correct way anyway that is defined. A lot of bad practice tutorials. Yeah, and like sometimes like you get into them and you're like it's like none of us like we don't know the right way of doing things, or we would all be doing things the same way, right? If there was a unified way of doing things, then that will be the way everyone would do it, But the tutorials like really don't help. They don't like define a standard. They just kind of like, well, you know what? I myself used this same tutorial, and then this happened, so I'm going to tell you to do it in the same regard. And so is that an interactable prop? Are we interactable now? No. Okay, let's. Yeah, most tutorials have a disclaimer that says, this is showing you the mechanics of this thing. Don't do this in practice. Yeah, it's like, who was I chatting with? Was it Dramole? It was either probably Dramole or, I think it actually was Dramole in voice chat. We were talking about systemically, right? Like one of the things that I want to do, right, is I have a sensor system, and the idea is that as I'm moving around, right, I'm sphere casting, non-allocated. So I have an array of colliders, or collision, of colliders, and I'm just sphere casting for game objects that are around me. So I have a non-allocated list. And then for each of those things in the non-allocated list, because it's only going to be whatever's the closest thing around me, I have a screen space UI, right? And I'm going to just create a bunch of empties in that screen space UI that represent those colliders and make the references. So then for each one of those, I can create some weird overview, right? Some screen. Hey, I can interact with this thing, right? When I get close enough to it. But like that, I still don't know if that's the best way of doing it. I know I want screen space canvases, right? Because they're way better than world space canvases. But let's think from a multiplayer's perspective, where I'm moving around the universe. If I were following tutorials, they would assume that I'm living in a box, and all we're doing is every frame or every fix update, find in the scene everything, and then like instantiate like an empty of this prefab, and then move it to this position, right, from the screen, the world space of it. And it's not necessarily the wrong way of doing it, but holy shit, like every single frame, like that's a lot of stuff. And if you're trying to do that in a huge world where there's 1,000 entities now, right? A lot of tutorial makers don't actually build things, which is also a big issue with that content. Exactly. So then you're like, you can have something that actually truly works in a closed environment, where you're like, cool, I'm making all these interactable things, and then you make your world a little bit bigger, and all of a sudden nothing works anymore. But you would have no idea why it doesn't work anymore, because what you built was never in scope for the project in the first place. But you would have no idea. But with experience, you see through that, and mostly glean the mechanics. Right, so in that thought process, I kind of go back and I'm like, well, what's the Unity way of just trying screen space canvases? Like, how does Unity handle big games where we need to load in? Like there's a point, if I don't have, let's say, an example of multiplayer, like currently in the player, I'll just have a world space canvas, right, and I'll have a name tag, and it's fine, right? Whenever a player loads in the world, it's going to load that in, right? So as we're getting close to them, we can now see, oh, look, there's that player and there's their name. But if it's, say, screen space and we're building an FPS game, it'd be kind of weird, you know what I mean? If you load it into the game and then every single player that already existed, so on your own client, there's now name tag references, of where they are, even though they're not shown. right? Like it's like the game client is still gonna have to receive at some point, you know what I mean, that transform reference of another player, and still, you know, so whether it's instantiated at the beginning or it's instantiated within some proximity, at some point we need a screen space representation of that player. And you know, it's kind of a, what's the right way of doing it? Right? The only way that I can see is, of course, the way that I'm doing it, which is building a sensor system where we're just detecting things, you know, around us, and then for those things, you know, define what is visible and, you know, what can be rendered, and just pre-do them for performance purposes. But it's really, I don't know, it's interesting. Well, this is just player mail. Okay, so anyway, all we're doing right now is I'm going to go ahead and open these in isolation, add the interactor, and hopefully just things kind of just work by default. The thing I have to do is by default I don't have the interactor set to anything. I could, so in the FPS interactor script, I can actually define. Oh no, we actually can't do layers in the meta files. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and now let's just see if that allows us to interact with those items. I think the rigs are going to break. Na, 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 na. But I don't want to... where's our beer bottle? So now... I also don't think that beer bottle is the... is a prop. I think it's one I actually just had created. Nope, it is. It is the beer. And it does have the outline effect. Oh yeah, but we weren't in the... we weren't in the right layer for it, so we need to be in this layer to be able to interact with it. And what's going to happen is there's no update to this rig, but we should say that we should be able to select it, but it doesn't seem to be. So I'm trying to intentionally gatekeep the code so it doesn't work if it doesn't. It won't break if it's not fully implemented. So what's he missing? Prop, it's a bottle. Oh, right. So this was what I mean by yeah, so in the rig controller itself, we actually need to define the a transform for that target. So one for a mug, and then one for a bottle. And if they don't exist already, then we need to set the transform of where that would go if it was interactable. So we don't have anything in here in the rig yet for that. So all we really have to do, or what I'm going to do for now, is copy them over from the other rig. So I'm just gonna we're gonna zero out this player. And then bring in the male rig version. And the male rig version should actually have the new targets. No, actually it doesn't have those targets because the male rig is currently using this new temporary rig for the cockpit itself. Okay, so because we started off with the female just to kind of make things yeah, so let's just transfer over. Let me switch over to my Spotify real quick. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum. I need some free music. One of these days, we'll get some way better music that's lo-fi that we can use. I'll try on some stream beats. Turn it down a little bit. For me, anyway. Okay, so on this female rig, I need to zero her out. The issue is the females. I had to grab dinner. Game's looking great. Have a good stream. Have a good one to Danger. Hopefully you got that shout out. Yeah, so we're gonna transfer over these prop targets into our mail. Stream music is hard. I just started listening to what I want and just keep it off the VODs. Yeah, the issue is though I want to eventually revoke my affiliacy license or let it expire and then just multi-stream. And YouTube is a pain when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I don't know if I can just kind of... Nah, actually that's not... Maybe I can actually define what goes to YouTube. Maybe I can just stream something random. Like... Be like, this is what you guys are listening to. I'm going to listen to this thing, but only on like YouTube. But normally we have this really nice playlist that Roscoe had sent us, which is great. Yeah, so this prop target, there's a plugin for that that let you multi-stream and pick the audio track to exclude per stream. Cool. I'll have to look into that. And then we'll just apply this to the player mail. I know the references are going to be lost, thank you. And then we're going to just go in here, in our rigs, and then on our rig controller, all we have to do is add our prop targets. One for the mug, one for the bottle. Put in our bottle target. Put in our coffee target. Set our weights to whatever we want the hands to be. I haven't kind of created a standard for this yet. I thought they recently changed it so even partners could multi-stream. I thought it was limited to affiliates. I don't know. I hope they're more loose on that because I think like I would rather, you know, my goal is to not worry about income, so I'd rather get rid of the affiliacy completely. And you know, people that believe in the project, I'm certain, you know, if I start proving myself, this will become enough. You know what I mean? And we'll just build the game together, and it'll just, you know, the great thing about it is it is what it is. That's my goal, is focus on the Patreon. You know, we have full Patreon integration, so I can log in with the Patreon. I can link the Patreon. You can log into the game. I can give people their habs through Patreon. You know, once I get this prop system kind of handled, I'm going to go back into the netcode and start doing the log. Once you log in, it'll create your hab for you, and then like, assign the default props. Like that's kind of the thing I'm working towards over the next like 3 or 4 weeks as we get into the summer. And then, you know, ideally my goal for the summer is to have us all playing the game socially, you know, in the main truck stop where we can at least spawn our ships and fly around. And there won't be a lot of the game, like the gameplay will be single player in multiplayer, if that makes sense. Like we're only going to be syncing the ships and the players for the summer anyway. So you'll be doing your own missions, and for the prospective other players, they won't see the ships you're fighting, you know, and you won't see what missions they're doing. You know, it'll just be persistence in the sense that you can go in their ship and they can go in your ship, and you can just be together, you know, more socially. But obviously, as the mechanics get done, you know, and the build is single player and multiplayer, right? So the goal is going in and just testing the mechanics and seeing if they're fun, and then if they are fun, you know, then we focus on pushing it to multiplayer after it works in single player. And yeah, and that's my summer goal. My summer goal is if we can just make something, you know, where we can play the game together, and you know, and be in this kind of single server environment. because I'm never going to reach the network cap, because if I had 200 Patreons, I'd already be suffering from success. You know what I mean? I'd already be making enough money to be working on it full time anyway. So there's never going to be like, oh no, we got to make sure the server handles more than 100 players. There's never going to be 100 players on right now. If there was, it'd be, you know what I mean? It'd be, you know, it'd be a bad problem, or it would be a wonderful problem to have. I guess, and you know, and then I can just directly work with players on creating that feedback loop of like, you know, what should be the priority, where should resources go, what do we do? But I think multi-streaming is super important, because it's immediately more exposure and more feedback, and then, you know. But what I would like to get to is get to a point where the build is public to a certain extent, and I would like for players to be able to download it and become NPCs. Because I think giving the player the option to kind of like have the build on their computer and log in, and how long did it take you to get the first 17 Patreons? A few weeks, just recently. Missed the context, but multi-streaming is only allowed to specific platforms. YouTube is not included in that. Yeah, you have to kind of get rid of the you have to get rid of the affiliacy. You have to nuke the affiliacy to it. Twitch still wants the exclusivity of 24 hours. Right, so it's just like, I don't know, like for me, it's just faith that I can do it, and if people have that, I think they would be more inclined to subscribe. But I'm also not necessarily completely begging for it either, because it's kind of like, so as affiliate you can stream on other platforms including partner, but so as an affiliate you can stream on other platforms including partner, but not at the same time. Yeah, exactly. I'm allowed to kind of like bounce around. But Twitch needs the 24-hour exclusivity of the content. Okay, so this is good now. So let's see if my code is simple enough. That now that we have the email rigs targets copied over. Except TikTok, Instagram, but not streaming services like YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever want to stream on Facebook. I've seen Star Citizen streamers switch to Facebook, and like you never see them again. Like it doesn't matter how much you know, Facebook is probably partnered with them, because, you know. So now I'm still not getting the effect. Even though we are in, let's double check. So our coffee position is set for the mug. Our IK position is set for the bottle. I need to make sure that we kind of have all of our bases ticked off here. The interactor is set to default. Oh, it should be everything, I guess, then? Yeah, because we don't really have a place transform or a specific pop. The distance is 2. It only should have access to the rig controller. I mean, that's everything on the list. I think it is. This needs to be set to everything on the interactor. I think the default doesn't have any. They have specific setup. Let's see. Where is that coffee table? Okay, yeah, it's working now. So anything within you can now interact with. Once we have our prop. Oh, hang on. So the interactor is working, but there is no equipment slot. Okay, see, this is good. But so the idea here is I need to build the dependencies for this, so that but it never fails until the dependencies are met. So we don't have an equipment slot here, right? So I just create a new one for the equipment. I can give it whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. So I'm just going to call it a prop slot. I'm going to give it the 3. So this will be our prop slot. So because there isn't a place to put a prop, because everything matches by enumeration, the idea of that is like I can create any random thing, like an earring slot or something. We equip it. If there is an earring slot, it knows where to go. It knows, where on the player it exists, and then the equipment system knows to equip it or de-equip it. It knows what slot it's in. Once again, I really wish. I think these need to be serial, like these can be equipable, scriptable objects, really, because I think it would save. I hate doing things on the prefab level. So now that it has a place for the equipment to go, and this stuff is kind of intended. I want to make sure that, like, as I'm adding this new interaction system, it doesn't break everything, like, because it doesn't exist. So now if I go to the equipment slot, see, he's like his rig is not even set up. He doesn't even have a rig, like a IK rig. We're strictly working with positions here. So now we can equip our beer, and we can move our beer around, and the interactor is working perfectly now. Other than the fact, once again, we don't have that IK target being, moved. But we should now be able to drop it, pick it up, and yeah, good. Put it on the ship, throw it around. Which is what we want. Oop. Eventually, I'll be smart, like a normal smart dev, and make console commands that I can use to spawn things. Which is what I should be doing. I've been neglecting the whole console gameplay. I know Jonas makes so much of his work easier by incorporating a lot of tab complete commands and stuff into his console for testing purposes, where I can start in an empty world and be like spawn station, and then it just spawns a station in, and spawn this prop, spawn this item, spawn whatever. Maybe we'll spawn it by a UUID or by a name or whatever. But I'm not there yet. So now let's do the same. Let's bring the network player in. Once again, I really wish I had inherited from the male character and then created the network male character, but I didn't really. There's so many different things that the network player has. Male net. So let's just move him in. Right, because his rig controller, so he needs an interactor. Oh, that's bad. Because the interactor requires an FPS controller, and we have a net FPS controller, which is a little bit different. That's gonna be a no dice on the network build. I'd have to make it like a network. Damn, all the peanut butter pretzels are gone. Why did it have to be so good? Because they are. So let's take this interactor, and I'm going to make a network version of it, which is going to be totally the bad code, but that's why we just stick it in a different net namespace. But let me just go to net, because it only needs one for the time being. We're going to create FPS interactive net. Just to satisfy the dependencies, but we're going to need it can still be a mono behavior. Doesn't there's nothing crazy about it. I just need to make sure that we're referencing a different controller, and we'll just let this thing. Oh, it's gonna be a pain in. Anyway, we're just gonna stick this in monolithic.net. Just because it actually references it. I guess it doesn't really have to. It is really a mono behavior. I'm putting the net prefix on it, but you can just use monolithic .net. Oh, and apparently I'm terrible and I don't know how to put a CS on the end of it. Why is it not an assumed thing? What? Rename? Hello? Can I not rename this? Oh, because it's here. I'm terrible. There we go. And I've never had peanut butter pretzels. I bet they're amazing. These are peanut butter inside a little pretzel popper thing, but it's just regular. But just regular pretzel sticks are good too. Yeah. So mug, bottle. And then this one's gonna need in rigs of the prop positions. All right, let's fix. Okay, so now we have our prop targets under the rigs. And now we'll just go ahead and define those for the player. So the mug position. We call it coffee position, but that's a terrible name. I'm just gonna put the full weight on that. And then our bottle position. And then the interactor will work in multiplayer, but it'll still be a single player. Well, it really won't be a single player because eventually it'll be a network prop. And because the prop itself will have its own network object identity, when it gains authority and moves it into the player's position, it'll actually work. But we just need to be everything. I do need to limit the interactor's physics, though. It doesn't need to be in. Yeah, I'm just wondering if the network player, so in our net system, we need to see which station. Because what I'll do is in Irish John's bar, right here. So in the bar itself, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add one of those interactable props, and we should be able to interact with it, whether we're single player or multiplayer. Right, so we'll just grab a beer prop. We'll just throw it there. And we shouldn't have to do anything. It should all be set, I hope. And now let's give this a run. I'm sure I'm missing something on the network player. Oh, the equipment slots. Right. The equipment slots themselves. I don't think it's gonna work. Hang on. Net B. So we're male, female. I don't think on his equipment we have the extra prop slot. Yeah, so let's give them a prop slot. And let's apply all of our overrides. No, not player male. Oh no, that's good. I really wish I would have nested a lot of the prefabs a little bit more differently. Alright, let's uh-oh. The interactor immediately didn't like something. Yep, it didn't like something. What did it not like? Oh, wait, what's it trying to object pool? What are we object pooling? We're not serializing anything. What were we instantiating that has a... Yeah, it's the interactor 43. Was it? Oh. Right. It's got to be our network one. So we can just interact with things. Uh-oh, so where are we getting a problem? No, that's the old error. We're fine. Start the server, start the client, run over, interact with the beer bottle. Boom. So let's go to the interact prop screen. Nope, we did not find... Picked it up, but we don't have access. Wait, we don't have anything. Hang on, what's happening? Got some errors here. We equipped the IK. We equipped it to the IK bottle position. Oh, I wonder, do we not have the default? Yeah. Oh, yeah, the prop is not prop. Oh, we didn't give a number to a slot. I'm an idiot. Hang on. I forgot. What are you using for networking? No, we're using fishnet because network for game objects was not good enough, and network for entities was good enough, but I hate the fact there's no animator in dots right now. There isn't a Unity provided solution for an entities based animation system in the 0.62 whatever we are now of 1.0. If I was still using, that's what I'd be using exactly, because Fishnet's amazing. And the biggest reason why I knew Fishnet was amazing is for Valheim, the solution for Mirror in Valheim, where you jump on a raft and you're all synced to the raft, was created by First Gear Games, as an asset for Mirror, who eventually got so frustrated with Mirror that he's like, fuck it, we're just gonna do our own thing, and then created Fishnet. So if when you're thinking about the issues, which is network identity or network object parenting, which is the biggest solution that we need for a Star Citizen style game, where we have players in ships where we only want to be syncing local transformation in relation to the parent, because it doesn't matter how fast the ship is moving through space. You know what I mean? We're all just in the ship. We are literally playing Valheim and complaining about the networking. Well, that's Mirror, so you can blame Mirror for that. Fishnet is 78% of the latency. It's 78 or something percent less latency than Mirror. I'm not saying Mirror is bad. I mean, Mirror has more documentation, but I'm just saying Mirror is never going to work for my game. I remember watching the guy who made Stomper, or one of the developers who's working on Stomper, which is a game with this big mechanical beetle that you're kind of flying it around. He was trying to make it so he could pick up objects and stuff like that, and he had so many issues with Mirror. And even though my original FPS project is Mirror, it was once we started getting in ships, there was desync, and then the player would go to the middle of the world while they were in the ship, and then we would see them not in the ship, they'd be in the middle, and then when boat people are in the ship, then we'd see each other, but then one person would leave the ship and then they'd be in the middle of the universe, and it was oh my god, it was crazy. When you do something like chopping a tree, it applies damage a second after the animation. Oh yeah, and the other issue with Mirror was the way that it started doing the predictive modeling. There would be a buffer, a client-side buffer of transforms, and a server-side buffer of transforms, which would be used for interpolation. But when you change authority, so when you say I want to control the cargo box, right? Say in a client authoritative model where clients can kind of do their own thing. Anyway, the second authority changes, the object will snap to its current real position, and there will always be a jitter, because those buffers of transform informations kind of become concurrent, and then they kind of start, I don't know what the word is, I'm trying to explain it, but it just isn't good for or wasn't good while I was playing around with it. So I don't know, maybe Mirror has gotten better, but I totally see the use cases for Mirror, but in our use case, Mirror is absolutely a no-go. And netcode for entities is going to be the true solution, but I really need them to make an animator that's not I'm not using a third-party animator. I'll get all this shit rigged up and ready to be to be as decoupled as I can, and just hope that they kind of get their shit in order. But it's because then we can do massive asteroid fields and huge movement and just, I don't know, there's so many cool shit, man, we'll be able to do with dots. I'm hoping the whole summer turns into a dot stream where we're kind of, because I can do a hybrid model, and I can start off with okay, we're just going to use dots for asteroids. You know what I mean? And we're just going to simulate asteroids using dots. So the first entities will probably be a lot of the background space simulation. And then I'll slowly start, creating the Baker scripts to convert more and more of the game, the dots. So it'll start hybrid and it'll move more to entities. But simultaneously, I'm just worried that Unity is going to fuck it up when it comes to their animations. So that is a huge concern. Because it's not like Unity would totally abandon any of their workflows or whatever we want to call it. So I'm so far from needing networking, but the number of options are pretty large, and everyone has something to complain about. Yeah, they're all bad. Well, I mean, they're not all bad. They're all just so different. Like netcode for game objects is amazing if you're dealing with this, basic kind of cool 8-player co-op game. It's perfect. You're not breaking the mold. You know, it's 3. Oh no, wait, what? Did I not apply this? We do have a prop layer on the equipment, so what's missing? Oh, right, is equipped needs to be set to true. But that shouldn't matter, so we have prop number 3, it is equipped. We have our rig controller with our IK positions for both. And our interactor only should need everything, which it has. I mean, this is the setup. See, I have this like weird player weapon script. This is like early testing stuff. This probably doesn't even need to be on the network transform, but yeah, I think that's everything that it needs to spawn. How many players am I aiming for? 100 players with 1,000 NPCs. In a perfect world. In a non-perfect world, for gameplay mechanics, we're going to get 8 players using Steamworks and Fishnet's implementation of Steamworks, and we're going to be able to probably like test it that way. It's going to just kind of depend. Like if I start opening this up, like we've tested, like 30 players, and it's like not really a big deal. It just depends on like how things are, like how well the technology kind of works. And if it doesn't work, then we're just going to regress on that and be like, okay, we're not doing, we're going to do 20 players, we're going to do 10, whatever, it ends up kind of moving. Because like it's space game, so we don't need like stupid amounts of, other than the players' animators syncing when they're within proximity of each other, ships moving around are really easy, and a lot of like asteroid movement and stuff will be seeded. So simulating the asteroids can be like seeded in the same way that like Sea of Thieves' waves are seeded, right? Like on each client, as long as time is correct, all waves, depending on the weather, can be synced in a way that they're going to be where they're going to be. It's not like we're we're adjusting every vertex to the position of things. So, if I can do something similar, we have like asteroid fields just moving on the client based on time, based on a seed, then every asteroid's going to be where they're going to be, right? Like no matter what. So like it's really just syncing, being very clever and just only syncing what needs to be synced. Will create, the illusion of scale. Because that's what it is, it's an illusion of scale. It's not. So I kind of already started playing with that, and the solution isn't as complicated as you might think it might be. Because what I can do is put a network identity on a cluster and have like the cluster track the objects, and if like a player destroys one asteroid, like that can just be removed, and it just syncs like, oh, asteroid blah 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 ID has been removed from my little cluster. So the only data is being added, to this volume of asteroids to represent which one should exist from the seed as they're being destroyed. So there's a point where enough of the asteroid would be destroyed that it would create a lot of syncable data. But until that occurs, and you can still, like, when you hit an asteroid, server can be like, oh, a player is doing damage to one of my asteroids, in my field. Let me, when it blows up, spawn one in, right, in its damaged state. And then that can be synced to only the players that are within that, like, influence. So kind of think like, really the server, if we're thinking in a Unity sense, you can have a lot of sub-scenes and like zones, where only players within that zone are, having data communicate with them and seeing things that are within it. Regions of space work like that too, where as you like transition into a zone, we're only players within that zone would need to be. So mining and things like that would be kind of work that would be thought about from the same process. But it's never going to be like thousands of asteroids and they're all like networked, right? You only ever need to network what's what a player's influence and never a player's okay, so it's not letting me drop it. Right. What? It dropped it but didn't unparent it. Oh, because the equipment. Oh no, there is a link between equipment and the FPS controller. So I really need to start using events. Okay, Wifey just got off work. I'm gonna go make dinner with her. Yeah, I really need to use like event singling to cross over, and because I'm my network player and I'm my standard player, I can create these delegates that I subscribe to. So then it doesn't matter if it's a network player. There's one reference to like this is the network player where all the sync bars are for the current test. Then everything else is the same. We're just subscribing to the same events. We're just pointing it to the different system. Because I don't really want to create a network equipment script, just because I'm referencing the FPS controller for that one purpose. But I think it's the where are we referencing the FPS controller here? Or in the FPS controller net. Hang on. Wait, what? Hang on a second. In the drop functionality, the equipment. So in equipment 201, the interactor. Oh, because we have a network interactor. Right. Where is that interactor? That clear clone is that the only ever influence of interactor is to clear the clone? Why do I not see like other references? Yeah, no, that is it. Just that. I could null check the interactor. Did I just do this? Is this like a bad thing? Although I'm now going to have to use that namespace, but that's fine. No, I actually don't need it. Fine, I just do a... Oh yeah, and that actually wasn't. It's still gonna give me a null reference exception, but let me just see if it works real quick. And I'll find a better way of just separating this code. So is it the targeting layers? Let me just try to fix up that male character on the multiplayer. FPS male net. Because I'm wondering if the targeting. So on the FPS controller itself, or the network FPS controller, there should be a target layer. Oh, there is, and it can do so it is targeting the cargo. Interestingly enough. So it should be working. This is the network one, right? Yeah, it is. So maybe it's the, let me see. It's supposed to be opening here in the scene view. Oh. We're in runtime. There we go. All right, let's see. We are mixed. We can do cargo. We should be going after cargo. Let me throw on. So it must be the multi-tool. Module type is gravity gun. But it normally should have a target layers with a tractor attachment. Target rigid body none. The emitters fine. I was sure I did have like an interaction layers for what it can tractor. Maybe not. Snap points. Set a target to be attractable. As long as it is attractable, we pull it. It must be authority. It must not have authority. Although that is a client-side object, so that's not the case at all. The player definitely must have. Let me check the network player. The observer, the emote, ship spawner, recontroller, FPS interactor. The IK is fine. Oh, wait. This guy might still have... No, he doesn't. We're good. Yeah, it should be under the FPS controller. Targeted layers. You're right, because I'm pretty sure the prop is under a ship component for the time being, just so we can, move them around. Because we are interacting with them. Maybe it's not in the scene. Oh, why did that break my music? Because normally in this scene, when we spawn our cargo boxes, the old school ones, like we can interact with them. We can't tractor them for some reason. And it's gotta be a layers thing, because it works anywhere else. And if we switch... Also not switching. Oh... Oh, duh. Yeah, no, I need to We need to extend the FPS controller to the FPS net one and only do the overrides that are occurring. So just extend the net controller to be the FPS controller. Then we'll just have to override what sync bars. Because it's the same controls. What are we changing? Like, what's the difference on the FPS controller? Oh, all the is owner checks. But you know what? We could just... Are you still here, Captain Coder? Oh, but then... No, that won't work. It has to be a network behavior. We can't. Right. How do I diff something in VS Code? Right click the two files and hit compare. Okay, hang on. FPS controller. But we're missing two rigs. I have both of them. I don't see a compare. You lie to me. VS Code is very far. There are two primary diffs you can do. Compare two files compared to Git versions. Right-click the first file and select compare, and then right-click the second one and say compare what's selected. Okay. Like compare. Compare selected. Okay, so this is our netcode version. What was I serializing that version? Oh, just for... Okay, I got you. Yeah, and our netcode version. We'll do this authoritatively. Which one is our net? We need new middle mouse. Wait, did I add it or did it remove it? What? Why didn't you? Huh? Why does that want to override this one? Owner checks are valid. Damn it, how can I just move a whole... How do I move? Like, I want this whole block. Nope, it's assuming that it became spawn, but it really didn't. Whatever. And we just gotta make sure that we can bring up that prop layer now. Yay, we can. So worst case scenario, getting it working client side in the multiplayer build. Yeah, it's not too bad. I need to figure out why this fire action isn't working though. In this particular build. Like I can shoot at anything. Usually it's just targeting though. And your clone. Wait, where are we getting cloned bounty missions? Oh no, that's fine. All right, let's see that now that this guy's instantiated, what is his target at layers? Mixed. I'm just gonna change it. If I just change it to everything here while we're still running, is it gonna freak out? Or is it gonna work? No. Yeah, I need to see what else, what was I doing with this custom animation player weapon script? I was doing something with this way back in the day. Oh, hi there, music. Can we please play some more? Come on, play. Yeah, it's like the target is not being set when I'm clicking. Yeah, and it's definitely not an authority thing. If we're not the owner, return. Is this it? I don't. Why would I care about the owner? What's the deal? Oh, maybe I was doing it. Maybe I was trying to use a raycast to get ownership. I think I was messing with it. Well, alright, just do a debug.log. Fine. I really don't want to be testing this right now, but I want to make sure that it's actually triggering. Yeah, I really don't like the stream beats stuff. I don't know. It's cool, but it's not like it is. Okay, so it is going ahead regardless of it being owned or not. And this is not finding the equipment manager. So for the owner, which we should still be the owner. If the equipment is equipped. I need to make sure that's actually working. Yeah, we probably don't need this. This is all working now. Didn't they actually have a transform dot World. Yeah, there is a set location position all at once function. That's what I thought. I was gonna say that this is new. Alright, we'll fix that later. We can't shoot each other in multiplayer anyway. What other props? What other things should we create? Could work on the HAB system a bit. I know we should probably keep working on the rig. Let's add the ship. Wait, what? Why is that not zeroed out? Oh, because it's the old one. It's the one that works for combat with the AI currently. Not the one that we want to use for our player. It's called light fighter. Interesting. I actually do have. Oh no, it's zeroed out. Okay, good. I don't know why. Oh, because the whole world has moved down. That makes sense. Alright, player, you are going to go away, and I'm going to build up the rig for us to interact with. Because once I solve that, then we pretty much have, you know. Alright, player mail's going to go. I do want to keep him in the other version of that, so we're going to make sure we don't apply overrides on this design. But we're I'm gonna make the helm script be an interactable here, and then that'll put us in the ship. And then we should be able to exit as well, but it'll be a little bit of a different animation sequence for it. Do I want to finish design? Okay, it's 10. I think I'm gonna end it here, guys. I'm gonna go raid someone, and then grab a decaf and sit down and ponder whether I want to finish working on more on the blender side of this thing, or finish working on the actual hand rigs, because either way both are kind of like equally important right now, that I either get these targets set up so the player can interact and blend to those points, or if I kind of, you know, set up the weapons so the weapons aren't hard coded, so they can be their own props, we can drop them, pick them up, and they go to the right spot. So set up the 2 rigs for the 2 different utilities for left and right hand. But ideally, that'll be the the goal for tomorrow anyway, on the stream, is to see if we can get the player walking up to the ship, interacting with the ship, and being placed in the IK position, then having all the hands and everything kind of on point, just like the male character is by reference. Because I think they're yeah. Anyway, let's go raid someone and we'll figure it out. Figure it out tomorrow. Thank you guys for joining me. Might jump in, play a bit of SC, we'll see. Might jump, see what the guys are doing. And if you're interested in supporting the project, oh, there's a lot of you guys. You know, definitely consider checking out the Patreon. You know, $5 a month, and you help, you know, build the game and gain access to the build. And at $10, you get your own little hab once that system is done. So, and you can give feedback on that. And of course, check out, you know, the social media and our Discord. And where are we gonna go? Twitch reviewer. Oh, Unity. Hey, Space Zeta. I like Space Zeta. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you guys again. You guys are awesome.
Of this. Ooh. Oh, hello. Thank you for reading game review. Hello. Hello, everybody. Come watch me be befuddled in the programming. As it usually is.